Hello, and thanks for joining us on this episode of Home Food Safety Mythbusters, brought to you in partnership with the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension in Hall County and resources from the Partnership for Food Safety Education. Today we're going to talk about the top 10 myths that consumers believe about food safety. So let's get started. Myth number 1. Cross-contamination doesn't happen in the refrigerator. It is way too cold in there for germs to survive. Have you ever thought this when you store food in your refrigerator? Well, here's the facts. Some bacteria can actually survive and even grow in cool, moist environments like the refrigerator. So, we want to make sure we keep fresh fruits and vegetables separate from raw meat, poultry, seafood, and eggs. This will help prevent cross-contamination. Clean your refrigerator regularly with hot water and soap, and clean up food and beverage spills immediately to help reduce your risk of cross-contamination. And don't forget to clean the refrigerator, the walls, and the undersides of the shelves. A recent study from NSF International revealed that the refrigerator produce compartment was actually one of the germiest places in your kitchen. So let's bust that myth and make sure we are keeping foods in the refrigerator clean and separate from others to prevent cross-contamination. Okay, myth number 2. I don't need to clean my refrigerator produce bins because I only put fruit and vegetables in there. Well, here's the facts. Naturally occurring bacteria in fresh fruits and vegetables can cross-contaminate in your refrigerator. To prevent the buildup of bacteria that can cause food poisoning, it is essential to clean your produce bins and other bins in your refrigerator often with hot water and liquid soap. Then rinse them thoroughly and dry with a clean cloth or towel to allow them to air dry outside the refrigerator. All right, it's time for myth number 3. I don't need to rinse this melon for safety. The part I actually eat is on the inside. Well, next time you reach for that cantaloupe, sure, you're not going to eat the rind of it, but there are many ways for pathogens to be on the outside of the melon, and that can contaminate the edible portion. A knife used to chop the melon passes through the rind and can carry pathogens from the outside into the flesh of the melon. The rind also touches the edible portion when fruit is arranged or stacked for serving. So play it safe and rinse your melon under running tap water, rubbing gently, or scrubbing it with a clean produce brush. Be sure to dry the melon with a clean cloth or a paper towel. Our next myth. So I eat a vegetarian diet and I don't need to worry about food poisoning, right? Wrong. Fruits and vegetables are an important part of a healthy diet, but like other foods, they can also carry a risk for foodborne illness. You always want to rinse your produce under running tap water, including fruits and vegetables, with skins or rinds that we are not eating. Never use detergent or bleach to wash fresh fruits or vegetables, as these products are not intended for consumption. Packaged fruits and vegetables labeled ready to eat or washed do not need to be re-washed before eating. Okay, so I'm bringing home leftovers or I'm ordering food into my home. Leftovers have to be safe until they smell bad, right? Well, smell is not an indication of whether food is safe to eat. There are many different types of bacteria, some of which cause illness in people and others that don't. The types of bacteria that cause foodborne illness do not affect the taste, the smell, or the appearance of food. You want to freeze or toss your refrigerated leftovers within 3 or 4 days, even if they look and smell fine. If you're not sure how long the leftovers have been in your refrigerator, toss them. If you're not sure how old your leftovers are, remember, when in doubt, throw it out. All right, our next myth. If we freeze food, that kills the harmful bacteria that causes food poisoning. Well, here's the facts. Bacteria can actually survive freezing temperatures. Freezing is not a method for making food safe to eat. When food is thawed, bacteria can still be present and may begin to multiply. Cooking food to the proper internal temperature is the best way to kill harmful bacteria. Always read and follow your package instructions and use a thermometer to measure the internal temperature of cooked foods. At the end of this video, we'll talk about proper cooking temperatures. All right, our next myth says, Putting chicken in a colander and rinsing it with water will remove bacteria like Salmonella. This is a big stink going on right now. The fact is, rinsing chicken in a colander will not remove bacteria. In fact, it can actually spread those raw juices all around your sink. Bacteria in raw meat and poultry can only be killed when they're cooked to a safe minimum internal temperature. For poultry, that's 165 degrees Fahrenheit, measured with a food thermometer. So save yourself the extra step and mess of rinsing raw poultry. It's not a safety step and can actually cause cross-contamination. Always use a food thermometer to check the temperatures of your foods. Our next myth, only kids eat raw cookie dough and cake batter. If we just keep them away from these raw products, there won't be a problem. Just a lick of that spoon of raw cookie dough can make you sick. No one of any age should be eating raw cookie dough or cake batter because it contains germs that could cause illness. Whether that's prepackaged or homemade, the heat from baking is required to kill the germs that might be in the raw ingredients. But let's face it, the finished baked product is far safer to eat and tastes way better. And remember, kids who eat raw cookie dough and cake batter are at a greater risk for getting food poisoning than most adults are. Okay, our next myth says, once a hamburger turns brown in the middle, it is cooked to a safe internal temperature. Well, next time you have a cookout, make sure that you don't rely on those visual cues to determine whether food has been cooked to a safe temperature. The only way to know that is by using a food thermometer and measuring the internal temperature. Ground meats like hamburger meat should be cooked to a safe internal temperature of 160 degrees Fahrenheit, measured with a food thermometer. So let's talk about myths in the microwave. If I microwave food, the microwave will kill the bacteria, so the foods will be safe to eat. Here's the facts. Microwaves aren't what kill bacteria. It's the heat generated by the microwaves that kills the bacteria in foods. Microwaves are a great time saver and will kill bacteria when the food is heated to a safe internal temperature. However, foods can often cook unevenly because they may be shaped irregularly or vary in thickness. Even microwave ovens equipped with a turntable can cook unevenly and leave cold spots in the food. So be sure to follow the package instructions and rotate and stir your foods during the cook process. Observe any stand times that are called for in the directions, and check the temperature of microwave foods with a food thermometer in several spots before serving. Hey out there, this is Karen Booth, University of Georgia Family and Consumer Science Extension Agent in Hall County. So hopefully you've been watching some of the video about the food safety myths that the Partnership for Food Safety Education has put out there that a lot of people believe to be true. So I wanted to show you a couple of things around my kitchen that are some do's and maybe some don'ts to avoid when we're talking about food safety in our home kitchens. So one of the things that we saw on the video mentioned cross-contamination. So cross-contamination is when bacteria travels from one food to another. So a lot of times we hear that especially when handling meat. So when juice from a raw meat, such as hamburger meat, gets onto some of the produce. So think about if you were doing a grilled chicken salad, you're getting your chicken prepared to put on the grill or on the stovetop, and then you've also got your produce, your lettuce, your tomatoes, things like that that you're planning on using in your dish, and the juice from the chicken gets onto the lettuce. Now we're obviously not going to cook the lettuce, and we learned in some of those food safety myths that the only way to actually kill some of the bacteria is to heat it to the proper temperature. So since we can't do that with our produce, we have to take some steps along the way to avoid that cross-contamination. So there are a couple options out there to help you avoid cross-contamination. You can always use 2 different cutting boards or 2 different knives. So you see here, my knives are actually 2 different colors. So it may help me remember which one I'm going to cut my produce with and which one I'm going to cut my meats with. You can also use separate cutting boards. So a lot of stores actually sell cutting boards that come in multiple colors to help you remember. Maybe the green is always for your salads and your produce, the red might be for your fish, the purple might be for your poultry. So those are some options out there. One other important thing to avoid cross-contamination is make sure that you are not doing any unnecessary washing of produce or unnecessary handling of raw meats. So there's a big myth out there about washing poultry. Do I need to wash my chicken? Do I need to wash my meats before I prepare them? So that is a big no. We do not need to wash our poultry, okay? The only way to actually kill the bad bacteria is to heat it to the proper temperatures. So don't waste the time dirtying up your colanders or dirtying up your sinks and getting that bacteria on other surfaces in your kitchen by washing it. You could pat it down with a dry cloth if you wanted to remove some of the juice off of there, but be sure to wash, rinse, sanitize your surfaces after you've done that if you choose to do that. Now in the video we also saw some packages where it mentioned you do not have to rewash things that say wash and ready to eat. So here my baby spinach says pre-washed and ready to eat. So I don't have to go to another step to wash this spinach. It is considered a ready to eat product. Now it did mention also about washing your produce. So this grapefruit here, although I'm not going to eat the outside of the grapefruit, it is important to wash the outside of my grapefruit. When my knife comes in contact with the outside, there could be some germs that are living on the outside. There's some bacteria that I don't want to introduce into the inside of the fruit when I cut it using that knife. Now, some people are asking about COVID-19 being transferred to produce. It has not been shown that food or food packaging is an avenue where a lot of bacteria can live, where the COVID-19 is using that as a transmission route. That's not what we're seeing as of right now, but it's always best practice, even when we're not in a pandemic, to wash your produce thoroughly, rub it. You could use a produce brush, but it's not necessary. It's also not necessary to use any kind of wash. We do not recommend using hand sanitizer or kitchen soap to wash your fruits and vegetables. So just using your hands, rubbing those under cool running water, just slightly warmer than the produce, is always a good idea. So we're not going to eat the outside of our grapefruit here, but we usually are eating the outsides of things like our green peppers. So that's when it's especially important to rub those briskly under running water. So those are a couple of options in order to avoid cross-contamination of your products and to also wash these foods carefully. Now that we're preparing our foods, we're using our colanders, our strainers, in order to wash our produce, not our chickens, not our meats, remember that. So I already mentioned the only way to know that your foods are cooked properly is to use a food thermometer. So one of the myths that was on the video earlier was that we can tell that a hamburger is done just by the color, okay? It's not necessary to cut in and see the color anymore if you're going to use a food thermometer. So another tip here, avoid cross-contamination. Make sure if you use the thermometer and you find that that hamburger is not done, you do need to wash that with soap and water and dry it before you use it again, because we don't want to transfer any bacteria from our original reading into the hopefully fully cooked hamburger when we're done. So there are great resources out there. We've got some posted on our website, and I'll also attach them as some links at the end of the video for some thermometer readings that you want to look for different products, okay? So we want to insert our thermometer into the thickest part of the meat, not the thinnest part, okay? And you do want to use, this is called a bimetallic stem thermometer. There's some different ones out there. There's some instant read ones, there's some digital, but just make sure it's a foods grade, food safe thermometer, okay? So some of the recommended temperatures here, and you'll find this fact sheet on our website: 145 degrees Fahrenheit for your beef, lamb, or pork steaks, is also any roast or any chops that you choose to make. 160 degrees Fahrenheit is what we're looking for ground beef and pork and lamb, and also any dishes that contain eggs. 165 degrees is what we're looking for chicken and turkey, and that is all of our whole chicken, ground chicken, and pieces of chicken and turkey. And 165, the highest temperatures for your leftovers and casseroles. A lot of times we don't think that we need to check the temperatures of our leftovers, but we do want to be mindful of that, especially in this pandemic where lots of people are ordering food and having it delivered to their homes from restaurants. So be sure if you are reheating those that you want to reheat those to 165 degrees. So hopefully we followed the steps to not only wash and get our food ready to cook safely, but we have also checked our food now that it's done, and we made sure that it reaches the proper temperatures with our food thermometer. So one final step to help with food safety is to make sure that you're using containers to store leftovers that are intended to store foods. So here's my leftover yogurt container. Although this might be a great container, it looks like maybe to store some extra pasta or rice or some extra soup that I might have left over. This is not a food safe container that we want to use for storing leftovers. So you want to use something that's intended for food storage. Now this is a glass one. Glass is a little bit easier to clean, doesn't always soak up those smells like you might find with some of your plastic containers. So glass is a great freezer safe option as well. So just make sure that you're not reusing other food containers, old pasta jars, butter containers, or yogurt containers to store food. And one thing I did forget to mention when we were talking about washing, you do want to make sure that you wipe the tops of your canned goods before you use them. It's just an extra safety precaution step, especially during this time when you may be getting groceries delivered to your home, or even at the grocery store. We don't know how many people might have handled this can, so even when we're not faced with a pandemic, we do want to make sure that we're keeping ourselves clean, keeping our hands washed, always washing our hands for at least 20 seconds with warm water and soap before, during, and after any food preparation. When in doubt, always rewash your hands. And when it comes to leftovers, things that you find in your refrigerator, maybe you're doing a little bit of spring cleaning. If you're not sure how long those leftovers have been in your refrigerator, when in doubt, throw those out. So the recommendation is only 3 to 4 days in the refrigerator. So just be mindful of that as you're looking through your refrigerators, doing some cleaning that out. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to post those on the comments, or you can email me at boothc@uga.edu.